Morning, everybody. Switch to English. My wife said this morning that I should learn to do an introduction in Swedish for this. Turns out you can't learn a language in an hour. I'd also like to thank the organisers for inviting me to come here and talk to you face to face. I must say Stockholm's one of my favourite cities. I have a lot of memories. My son and I came here for his 18th birthday, so I kind of love it. However, we need to talk about the weather. I am English after all, and it is terrible. If the organisers do a feedback form at the end, make sure you write Barbados next year. So, on to our subject for today. I'm going to talk to you about job seekers and the adoption of AI and their use of it. Seems that when you talk to people, it seems like it should be a pretty important subject, right? But not that many people talking about it. And I think the problem that we have is that no one's making money out of it. So when you go on LinkedIn, you don't see lots and lots of posts about how these companies are, using it. You see about how they're using AI, but we're forgetting about the job seeker in all of this. So today I'm going to give you a brief, a whistle-stop tour, as we would say, of AI, so that you guys can understand how the candidates who are applying for your jobs are adopting it. And then you can make a decision on whether that's good or bad. Before I do that, one slide background in terms of CV Wallet. My shareholders would be mortified if I didn't mention it. Plus also you need to understand my bias. So we are a verification platform. What that basically means is we're trying to put trust back into the hiring system, because we're in a world of deep fakes and fake news and all of this kind of stuff. And we want to engender that trust. And we do that by, first of all, we verify applicants as they come into the process. And more importantly for applicants, we allow them to store that proof in an app, on their phone, secure, and be able to share that with employers so they can build that trust when it comes to looking for a job. Ultimately, we want to build a system whereby all of that happens in the background automatically. Anyway, that's enough of me. So, job seeker adoption of AI. I wrote this post on LinkedIn about 6-9 months ago. Turned out a lot of people did not like it. Can't think why. And the people that mostly didn't like it were the HR tech vendors. And I think they assume that, if things are changing, that they'll be able to fix it. But the problem that we have is that things haven't changed for a long time. So everything that we have built is built upon the way that we've hired traditionally. So believe it or not, I'm in fact very, very old. And I remember in 1994, when I first started working in internet stuff, these old-fashioned people used to handwrite CVs. They'd put them in a post, and your CV database was this filing cabinet. And then the internet comes along, and it all starts getting digitized, and we're emailing, etc., etc. But the heart of it doesn't change. What we're actually doing is we're taking that process, we're taking it online, we're digitizing it, and then we're using technology to make it much more efficient. The problem that we have in this particular instance is that it's all going to change, and it's going to change very, very rapidly. You only have to look at the adoption rates of OpenAI and use of ChatGPT. I think it was the first technology to hit 100 million users within something like 6 weeks or something ridiculous. It's already everywhere we look, everywhere we go. So the reality is that this adoption is going to happen very, very quickly. And my job today is to try and help you prepare for what that means. So how can we understand it better? The scale of the problem that we're facing. And also to look at what are the things you might want to do to prepare for it. Because we did a survey of how many people, talent acquisition professionals, had an actual plan to deal with job seeker adoption of AI. And it was like less than 10%. It's not something that we think about. And we assume that our existing tech vendors will be able to help us and solve these problems for us, because that's what they're there for, right? That may not be the case. So we've got a few videos coming up. Whether the tech works, we'll see. But basically I've tried to break down job seeker adoption in terms of 3 sort of levels. The first is a kind of beginner level. So this is what most people are doing today. They're using ChatGPT, they're rewriting their CV, they are tailoring it to a job, using it to write covering letters, all of that kind of stuff, looking at interview questions and so on and so forth. So it's quite a manual process, and I'll click in a second for a video. A friend of mine who he does some consulting out of in Germany, and he works with a company, and they were hiring for a remote analyst, and they had literally hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And the problem with these applicants was every single one was written in perfect German. Who knew? Turns out 75% of those applicants were either from Morocco or India. Now, I don't know the education system in these countries, but my guess is German is not top of their list of teachings. So this is the kind of stuff we've got to deal with, and therefore, how do we deal with it? It's getting more and more sophisticated as we go, but let me just see if this video plays first. So this is somebody using multiple tools, using AI within an application process, I hope.
This is how my resume got shortlisted for more than 10 big companies just by using this lazy hack. First, go to ChatGPT and create a prompt called "You are my resume creator," and then go to LinkedIn and copy the job description of the company that you want to apply for and paste it over here with some of the information about yourself. Based on that, it will create an entire resume, copy that and paste it in instaresume.io, and it will create an amazing template for you. Once that is done, go to SkillSync website and upload your resume over here. Based on this, it will suggest you the ATS score and also help you to find out the keywords that your resume is missing. This is how I created.
So you get the gist of this, right? You are going to get gamed. Your ATSs are going to get lots of CVs that all look the same, that have been optimized for your job. It'll be very, very difficult to tell them apart. So this is the basic level. We then move up to intermediate level. So this is where a whole bunch of auto-apply tools are being created. I saw a post this morning, and they had a list of 80 of these tools. And effectively what they do is you upload your CV, and then it looks for jobs and applies for them. This article that's at the top of the screen was in Wired, and they used it, and it applied for 5,000 jobs overnight. So 2 things strike me about 5,000 jobs. One, how on earth are the 5,000 jobs that match this person's requirement? I don't think there is, which means that they're just applying for anything, right? And therefore, how do you tell them apart? Secondly, in terms of the engagement this job seeker has in your company is literally 0. But you don't know that. You don't know that until you've wasted time trying to contact them and all that kind of stuff. Now, if I click again, I'm going to show you Lazy Apply, who these guys are, carrying out a search on LinkedIn and then applying for jobs on behalf of them. Don't blink, okay? Anyone see that job in there? I think you probably get the gist of that, right? Terrifying. And the problem with it is, you'd think, well, we can stop all of this stuff, you know, we can block it out, and we hear this a lot from vendors. But the actual tools are embedded into the browser. These are not, they're not that easy to detect. They're usually Chrome extensions, and that means that they can basically mimic you as a person, and it's quite hard to detect them. The only slight saving grace in all of this is that the bit that's difficult is integrating with the ATSs, which is ironic, because everybody wants to integrate with ATSs, and they, you know, their inefficiency is actually the thing that saves us a little bit. But you can imagine a world where people start adopting these stuff. And mostly these are paid for tools right now. But at some point they're going to realize that they can get paid by the advertisers and the things become free. I'm hoping this is not what the world looks like, because if it is, we all have a really big problem. So that's the level 2. Level 3 is the is kind of advanced. Now, what this video shows here is somebody who is being interviewed for a Lockheed Martin job. They are I'm trying to think if this one is there's two versions of this. I don't know which one I included. There's one for Starbucks where I think the guy's playing a computer game whilst answering coding questions, because he's using the AI to listen to the questions that are being asked. The AI is then giving him the answers, and then he's cutting and pasting or responding to them. But they all effectively work the same. So if I click
aerospace engineering, such as in jet engines or spacecraft re-entry, how do you approach these challenges?
Let me think about it. In aerospace engineering, selecting materials for high temperature application. So first, I'll approach the challenges in temperature resistance. So one of the main challenge is to find a material that can withstand the extreme temperature in high temperature applications, right? So I'll prioritize those materials that have like high melting points and can maintain their structural integrity at elevated temperatures. There's another challenge I have concern is the heat transfer management. I will select the materials,
Right, you get the gist, right? This one.
Are you interested in Starbucks?
Yes, I'm very interested in Starbucks because this role provided me an opportunity that aligns pretty well with my experience. I have been a store manager for a long time, and I admire and I want to share the Starbucks commitment to create a positive and inclusive workplace culture. I'm excited about the opportunity to learn and possibly leading a team in this kind of environment.
Terrible, isn't it? There is actually another video that I sent Charlotte that a company called iProve posted on LinkedIn. And it was using deepfake technology, and basically it's somebody doing an interview and you're looking at this person, they're talking, and their face changes. So they literally can replace somebody's face whilst they're talking to you, and you do not know who it is that you're talking to. So in that last one, the interviewee did not have their camera on. So you couldn't tell that they weren't paying any attention. But the next level to that is, people being paid to do interviews on behalf of other people and swapping faces. It's terrifying. And it is also, the speed of this adoption. I don't get me wrong. I don't believe that we are in some kind of dystopian world where this is what everyone does. But it is going to get used a lot. There was a survey by Arctic Shores who do assessments, and I think they certainly do it in the UK. I don't know if they do it in Sweden. And they interviewed a whole bunch of graduates, and it turns out 70% of people who they interviewed said they used or were expecting to use AI within the application form. What we're seeing here is that there are certain pockets of people that use this stuff more. Generally, they are younger, they are white-collar workers, and they are more technical. And then the numbers go really high. Though the lowest I've seen is sort of 30 to 40%. So there is a lot of people using this stuff. So we have to think about how we're going to use it, how we're going to adapt and deal with it ourselves. And it's causing what I call the recruiter paradox. And the recruiter paradox is basically where you're getting now too many applications, yet not enough of them are qualified. And that has its own challenges about it, because even if you had, 2-3% of people using those automated tools, the number of applications goes through the roof. And the problem that you then have is that the AI is making it much harder to tell them apart. All our German friends who have used exactly the same tools, their application looks the same because it's tailored to your job. Yet we still have this skill shortage. So we can't just turn the thing off. So we have to come up with a strategy that we hope will work. In terms of how many, I reckon it's going to be 10 to 20 times as many applications per job as you get at the moment. You already hear regularly of people getting thousands of applicants. We're working with a train company who are trying to recruit drivers in the UK. Very hard to fill roles because you're supposed to be able to drive a train. 2,000 of them applied within the first 5 days. It's not even 2,000 people that can do the job. You know, it is unbelievable. And I think I call it the future self problem. So people apply for jobs not as they are today, but it's as they think they will be if they get the job. So for example, I don't live in the UK, or I don't live in Sweden, but if I got this job, I might. I can't drive, but if I got the job, I'm sure I'd be able to learn to be able to do so. That kind of stuff, right? So, there we go. But there's a big caveat in all of this before we start judging people and saying this is all bad, because I've tried to paint as negative a picture as I can. We have to understand why it's happening. Now, the first reason why it's happening, I actually think, is because job seeking is horrible. You know, it is stressful. It is a horrible process. You have to fill in lots of forms, and as a man, I cannot do forms. And you know, the other side of it is you apply for jobs, and you can't expect to even hear back from employers. There was again a post on LinkedIn only this morning, and there's about someone who had applied for over 200 jobs, and 50 of those jobs he had heard nothing, no acknowledgement, nothing. And that ghosting basically says to the job seeker, we don't value your application because we can't even be bothered to reply and acknowledge it. So why should the job seeker spend any time filling in that application knowing that as an industry we are not responding to them? So I think we have ourselves to blame to a certain extent. The other side of it is that I think other than the desperation of people, and our Moroccan and Indian friends, you know, they're applying for these jobs because they're desperate to work. But also a belief that it will level the playing field. If people think that everyone else is doing it, why should I not do it as well? Because how am I going to stand the chance of standing out if ironically, I don't use these tools and it just makes my application in the end look exactly the same as everybody else's? But we also have to remember, from our own perspectives as hiring managers, some of the things that we're talking about are actually important to us. So, for example, creating a diverse and inclusive workforce. A friend of mine, Theo Smith, is a big advocate for neurodivergence. Easy for me to say. And he is dyslexic, he has ADHD, and he finds filling in forms and applications really, really difficult. So him and others like him reach for things like ChatGPT to use it as a way of leveling that playing field when applying for jobs. So if you ignore those applicants, you are potentially making your workforce less diverse. You also need to think about some of the effort people are going to in those videos is actually quite a lot. Whilst they might be cheating in terms of, you know, using tools to automate a lot of this stuff, surely, though, people that want to automate things are the sort of people you want to hire, right? Because you want to make your own organizations more efficient. You also want to hire people who embrace this sort of new technology. You don't want some dinosaur that, you know, has never used email before. But it will have a much wider effect on the industry. And I think the problem, as I said earlier, is our tech stacks have been built for a different problem. They haven't been built for a problem that is thousands of applications all looking the same. And our ATSs are the slowest sometimes to respond to these sort of challenges. We also have things like our career sites that have been built in a world where there's huge candidate shortages. So therefore, they are very, very easy to apply. And the problem with that is then you'll get too many applications through them. Job board advertising. This is going to be a massive problem. I can see a lot of job boards going bust. This, by the way, upsets people when I say it an awful lot within that industry. I've even been called a hater. But if you think about it, if suddenly your websites and your career sites are getting lots and lots and lots of applicants, what are you going to do to cope? You're going to stop your advertising. Also, if you're getting lots of advertising, the actual cost per applicant goes down. So these companies are going to significantly struggle, I think, financially. Assessments, that previous video where someone's being, asking technical questions. Assessments are obviously one of the ways that people reach to kind of help them deal with this stuff. And you'll hear about things like auto-proctoring, which is basically, it's where the technology checks that you're not cheating. The problem with that is everybody finds a way around it. So I've seen systems where they're using this technology, but the phone is sat behind, and it's actually listening to those conversations and giving people prompts of how to answer. So, what's the plan? I'm not going to tell you there's a right answer, because there isn't, but I'll give you some ideas. So, things not to do. First of all, do not ignore it. Writing a policy and stick it on your website, that's not going to work. I heard one company said they rejected anything that looked like an AI application, which I thought was brilliant. I would love to know how accurately they can tell that. And then the other one is stopping advertising. Stopping advertising is an interesting one, because whilst you will get less applicants, you will get even less qualified candidates. So, a couple of strategies. First of all, build a bigger wall. Make it harder for people to apply. You know, there's a logic to that. The problem that you always have with making things more complex within the application process is invariably the best people drop out first. So that's the big downside with that one, I think. Secondly, this is something that we do. You put somebody on the gate. You know, you ask questions on the way in as a way of trying to verify that people do in fact have the right to work. Asking a yes/no question is not going to cut it. People lie. Terrible, I know. But they also lie more if they've already applied, because they've already made the effort. Okay, and if he says, well, you know, it's back to this future self problem. If I worked for you, then yes, I would have a work permit, for example. You could just open the gates and let everybody in. That way you make sure you get as many as possible of the applicants who are out there. But you need the resources, and we're not in a world where, you know, HR, TA departments have lots and lots of resources. And we can't rely on our tech to find the ones that are the most qualified. Another way is to take a multiple stage approach, and this is one that I quite like. So take it in different steps. Make it easy to apply so you get everybody, and then let's put them through some verification. Let's put them through an assessment, etc., etc. And this is a good way of getting enough applicants in, but also then saving you time and money trying to deal with the ones that are unsuitable, because hopefully you start with a short list that is actually usable. But again, it's going to be about the tech stack and how on earth do you make sure that all your technology works together, because it often won't, sadly. Fish are friends, not food. Job seekers are also friends and customers. And if you give them a very bad experience, they will not come into your businesses, shops, whatever it might be. And they're also future colleagues, and they talk to people about their experiences when they go through this. They're also human beings. You know, they have real issues. They are desperate for jobs. They may just be trying to level the playing field. So treat them as you would want to be treated yourself. Don't lose your humanity because you're being overwhelmed with thousands and thousands of applicants. So to finish up the future, I think it's important to understand what the future might look like. And whilst we've seen lots of talk about the HR, TA, tech industry adopting AI, and now we're starting to see job seekers doing the same, I think we'll start to see the whole thing coming together. But I mean, there are some issues, some legislative issues, and I think we shouldn't lose the human part of it. But the idea of a recruiter bot talking to a job seeker bot is not that far away, I don't think. So we use a QR code within our app, and the idea is that when you scan the QR code, it shows the CV of the person whose CV it is. And the idea was originally that we envisaged this world where somebody walks up to an Amazon warehouse. They scan in their QR code. The system reads the QR code. It sees a CV. It sees all the proof behind it. So it knows that, yes, I know their identity. Yes, they are a real person. Yes, they have the right to work. Yes, there is a contract in place. Yes, they've done the health and safety training. And they can literally frictionless hiring. But again, I think we have to remember that at the end of the day, we are talking about humans here. So it doesn't work for all jobs. But if you're thinking about this stuff when you're building these stacks, then I think it will help guide you as you make decisions about how you're going to deal with this stuff. And that's me. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Richard. I'll switch to English for a little bit. You speak very fast. I'm used to people saying I speak fast, but your English is quick. Very interesting, a bit scary, obviously. What will happen next? I want to know from a job seeker perspective. What do you think is going to happen at the end of this year?
So there's a famous quote by Bill Gates, and he says that what you expect to happen in the next 2 years is less will happen in the next 2 years, but more will happen in the next 10. So I think that in the next 2 years, we will start to see adoption of these tools. We'll see them become much more sophisticated. We'll see more and more stories of people getting thousands and thousands of applicants and not being able to kind of deal with it. But it's not going to happen overnight. But it will happen quickly. And I think that people need to start thinking about what that means to their organizations and what they're going to be able to do to deal with it now, because otherwise it'll be too late and then you'll be in all sorts of trouble.
What's your top 2 advice to start doing now?
Sit down as a team and scenario plan what that might look like.
That was one scenario. What's the number 2 tip?
Review your tech providers and make sure that they have a plan in place, and review that against your plan and make sure it does actually do what they say it will do.
In Sweden, it's very common that we validate candidates at the end by background checks, etc., and even CVs a lot of times. But your process actually verified them before they apply. Is that correct? So how does that work?
So we figured that the problem at the moment is that because you reference at the end of the process, and people charge a lot of money. So typically you'll pay 50 to 200 euros to do a reference, for example. And it's very in-depth, and it's important that you still do that. But if you've waited to the end and you can't reference that person properly, then you have to go all the way back to the beginning. So surely it'd be better to do a kind of a light approach. Let's check a couple of things. Let's use the AI technology to do what it's really good at and automate the processes. And we can do it for less than 20 cents. So it's per candidate. So it's much, much lower cost. And if you put that layer in, it just means that you're then not wasting time and money dealing with all of those people that otherwise you would have to deal with.
Okay. And technically, what do you actually check?
Totally depends upon the job.
Okay.
So the great thing, again, about AI is that you can ask it to check anything.
Okay, yeah, because it's an AI solution. So we got to quality check it carefully then, that we heard before.
But what we do is, you can cross-reference things as well. So, for example, with our identity check, you upload a picture of your passport or driving license, and it will look at the picture, it will pull out the information, it will look at your own face like you do when you go in your banking apps. And it does all of that stuff as well. But then you can compare it. So let's say that you wanted to ask somebody for a license. I don't know, they're a doctor or something. So produce your license. And very easy to fake. But if you have a picture of a driving license, we say to the AI, does this look real? Yes, no. And is the person whose license and name is on the license the same one as the person whose identity you have also checked? So it allows you to do things that you just couldn't do historically without this sort of technology.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much. Very interesting. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlotte. Thank you, everybody.